Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon and good morning, wherever you're coming from and watching this Ignite. We hope you all are having a great Ignite this year and have been able to catch a lot of interesting sessions. And want to thank you for joining this Ask the Expert session focused on compute and disk storage. We have a bunch of compute and storage experts here today to answer your questions. So we're looking forward to it. So thanks for joining. And just a couple things to kick off this session, just some housekeeping rules. So you'll be, as the attendees, you'll be using the chat to ask questions. And we'll have a moderator who will be approving those questions that are coming in. Some will be answered on camera with a few of our experts, and then the others will be answered live in the live chat. We'll also have some resources towards the end of the session that you can look into to learn more about the various compute and storage announcements and services. Also, in terms of etiquette, this session may be recorded, and just to help our moderators out, please do not spam or post any inappropriate comments in the chat, because our moderators will be looking through the questions and figuring out the best way to answer your questions. And in terms of the Microsoft Code of Conduct, I won't go through it. It's also posted in the chat as an announcement, but please take a look and read through it if you can. So for our Ask the Expert session today, we have two experts, one from compute and one from storage. So we have Varun Chandalia, who is a principal PM manager in Azure Compute. And we have Alec Becker, who is a program manager on the Azure storage team. So really great to have both of these guys here today. And so, Alec, I want to first kick things off with, from the session, What's New in Azure Infrastructure? There was a couple good questions that came in, so I wanted to resurface them here and get your responses. But the first was, with the announcement of the preview of zone redundant storage for premium and standard disks, what is the different than local? How is that different than local redundant storage? And how, as a customer, how would I choose which option to use? Okay, we'll come back to Alec. Looks like we're having some technical difficulties. Varun, I'll switch to you. So on the compute side, we also had some interesting questions as part of the What's New in Azure Infrastructure session. I heard that the new announcement around capacity reservations. How is that different from the existing Azure reservations? Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. So I think, Henry, what you're talking about is the on-demand capacity reservations that we announced today. It's a great way for customers to have an SLA around VMs that they want to deploy and be confident that the capacity will be available to them. Note it is different than the reserved instances that we offer. The on-demand capacity reservations do not offer any discounts for customers, but it enables you to use the reservations that you have to deploy any on-demand VMs that you want to deploy.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Varun. And another question, staying on compute, with virtual machine scale sets, how do I decide whether I choose virtual machine scale sets or instead of availability sets? Can you tell us how to kind of make those decisions?
Yeah, I think that's, again, a great question. So we have two products today in the market, virtual machine scale sets, and we also have availability sets. Customers use availability sets for deploying high availability infrastructure and workloads, and virtual machine scale sets are generally used for high scale deployments. We made an announcement today of extending virtual machine scale sets and offering a flexible orchestration mode, using which customers can deploy high availability workloads and get the same experience that they would have gotten on availability sets on virtual machine scale sets flexible orchestration mode. Though the product is in preview, we would not recommend using it for production workloads right now, but as soon as it gets on GA, you should definitely consider using this, because that's the evolution that we are marching towards from a high availability at scale deployments on Azure.
Okay, great. Thanks, Varun. Thanks for those responses. We'll try Alec again. So the initial question that I heard was, we noted with the announcement of zone redundant storage support for premium and standard SSDs, how is that different than what we have today with local redundant storage support, and how would I decide which option to use?
Okay. Yeah, can you hear me now, Henry?
Yep, I can hear you.
Perfect. Sorry about that. Yeah, so previously we've had locally redundant storage, where we would take 3 copies of your disk and keep it within one data center. And so this would be great for redundancy, but in case of like a catastrophic failure where the whole data center goes down from like a fire or a natural disaster or whatnot, you were at risk of losing that data and availability and the durability. So with zone redundant storage, or ZRS to shorten it, we actually copy this data not only within the data center, but we also spread it across different data centers within a region, or across different zones. And so each availability zone has its own power, its cooling, its networking. So disks with ZRS enabled are protected from failures from like a fire on the data center or something like that. And so when you're considering the difference between like locally redundant storage or zonal redundant storage, you should take into consideration of cost and latency, because we are copying this data from into multiple data centers. There's a bigger storage footprint, so there's going to be an increase in cost. And because this whole thing is done synchronized, there is a slight cost of latency that goes along with that, with zonal redundant storage.
Great, thanks, Alec. Another one, a question that I heard was, how do I, if I have Bursty or Spiky workloads, how do I optimize my disk performance?
Yeah, so yeah, it's a common scenario with a lot of customers where they have not a whole lot of activity at one point, and then all of a sudden they've got a whole bunch of activity. And so something to handle this like spiky workload is our bursting products. So we have credit-based bursting, and we also have our brand new on-demand bursting, which we just announced today, which I'm very excited about. So the two models, the credit-based bursting works for 0.5 terabyte and smaller disk on premium. And the way it works is you basically accumulate credits for all your unused IOs and throughputs over a given time. So say you're not doing a whole lot of activity to a disk, all those IOs and throughput that you haven't used, you're going ahead and putting it into a bucket that you can go ahead and use later. So your application goes, hey, I need a whole bunch of throughput at some time. And if your credit bucket for bursting says, hey, I've got credits for it, go ahead and use those credits, and you get your bursting. But on the other hand, for our larger size disks, we also offer something called on-demand bursting, where let's back up real quick. On the credit-based bursting, there is a limitation on it. There's only 30 minutes of bursting a day. So to get around that, we actually came out with our new product, our on-demand bursting, where you can get as much bursting as you want, but it does come at a cost. You pay for what you get from the bursting. So considerations between the two products is pretty much how long is this bursting going to be needed for in a given day? Is it less than 30 minutes or not? And also a cost consideration as well.
That's great, Alec. And as a quick follow-up, I know we also introduced towards the end of last layer performance tiers. So how would I decide when to use, between bursting and performance tiers? How would I decide when to use what capability?
Yeah, great question, because that's another performance enhancement product that we offer. And so with performance tiers, the way that one works is pretty much like you could say, hey, I've got premium disks, like a P4 or whatever, and it can do like 120 IOPS, but you really want it to do like 5,000 IOPS for a given time. With performance tiers, what you can do is say, hey, with my P4 disk, I want to upgrade to this P30 disk that can get like 5,000 IOPS for a given duration of time. And like scenarios that really work well for this is like when it's really planned. Like, for instance, like say I'm running a web shop online that sells the coolest sneakers, and we've got these new sneakers that are dropping, and we know that customers are going to rush in and like try to grab them right away. So we know that we need the increase in performance at that given moment. So with performance tiers, we can go ahead and tier up our performance for that big rush to go get all our sneakers. And then when like the activity dies down, when we don't have this crazy rush anymore, we could tier it back down to get our cost savings. So with performance tiers, it's more, is it planned and versus unplanned? When it's unplanned, you're going to want to go more with the bursting scenario.
Okay, great. Thanks, Alec. Thanks for that. We had a question for you, Varun, around, should I use virtual machine scale sets instead of availability? Sorry, virtual machine scale sets instead of availability sets?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question and the differentiations that we have. With availability sets, when you deploy your workload, you get full access of your VMs and you can deploy them across fault domains. With virtual machine scale sets, flexible orchestration mode, or as we call it, Vmss Flex, just a short way of calling that. You can deploy the same kind of workloads, and it works very well for workloads like open source databases like Cassandra, where they have large scale deployments and they also need fault isolation guarantees. With virtual machine scale sets, flexible mode, flexible orchestration mode, you can deploy up to 1,000 VMs per AZ and get fault isolation either by AZ, or you can deploy up to 1,000 VMs in a region and have those deployed across multiple fault domains. So you're getting a very high SLA guarantee, and you're also getting very high scale and performance as well as part of your deployment. So those are the enhancements that we are trying to bring into virtual machine scale sets, and how we are kind of evolving it for the future and as customers come to Azure.
Great, thanks, Varun. And this next question is for you, Alec. On other Azure storage services, so Azure Files, what are the new tiers you announced for Azure Files?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so we just introduced 2 new tiers, which I'm very excited about. It's our hot and cool tiers for Azure Files, and you can kind of interpret it what it means. But for like the new hot tier, it's meant for hot file shares that are getting used a ton. And that the team shares, where performance isn't necessarily critical, but it's being used a lot. And then with the cool, it's our most cost-efficient storage optimization. And cool tiers are offered on standard storage backed by our HDD hard disk.
Great, thanks, Alec.
Yep.
Next question. Compute-related, Varun. Can you explain what the new try and restore feature does?
Yeah, so this is a new feature that we've introduced in our Spot virtual machines product lineup. Just to give you a very quick background, so spot VMs are VMs that we provide you at a very large discount, up to 90%, because they use our unused capacity, and we can evict customers for capacity reasons or for price reasons. So in case you get evicted because of capacity, where we wanted to reclaim the capacity because we have on-demand customers who are looking for that space, what Try Restore does is it uses our own ML models to figure out where do we have capacity within that same region or zone, and would automatically go and deploy a new VM, reclaiming your capacity so that you are able to work ahead from there rather than figuring out yourself on how to kind of reclaim that capacity. So we are taking that onus on ourselves to provide you with capacity when we reclaim it. It's still dependent on the capacity available in the region. So that's why Try is there, but we try very hard to restore the capacity that you would have lost.
Awesome, thanks, Varun. Alec, a follow-up question on performance tiers is kind of a clarifying question. So even if we increase the performance tiers, would we still have a throughput restriction? And just a clarified question there.
Sure. Yeah. So with performance tiers, your increase, like, say I'm using a P4 disk and it's provisioned for the 120 IOPS, and I think it's 25 megabytes per second of throughput. If you increase that performance tier up to like a P30, you get that 5,000 IOPS, and I think it's 200 megabytes per second of throughput with a P30. So it increases both IOPS and throughput. Sorry, yeah, I should have given an example with both IOPS and throughput.
Okay,
thanks
good.
Yeah,
performance tiers you can increase. You increase the tier, you increase both the IOPS and throughput. Great. And then Alec, Varun, for next question on compute, can customers combine Azure Reserve VM instances with on-demand capacity reservations?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we expect most on-demand customers, on-demand capacity reservations, which are unoccupied, to be long-lived and to be paid with RIs. However, on-demand capacity reservations are not a pricing construct, so you should not be thinking about RIs in that sense. And it's more of a construct for you to acquire capacity and have a guaranteed capacity available to you when you need to deploy your VMs. Okay,
great. Thanks, Varun. And now, like a storage question on blob storage or object storage solution. What are the methods available to protect my data well in Azure Blob Storage?
Okay. Yeah. So we have 3 recommendations when it comes to protecting your storage. The first is we recommend that you put a resource lock on your storage account to prevent accidental deletion. And then the second one is to have a container soft delete to recover the container deletion. And this feature is just now in preview, so go test it out. And then we also offer blob soft delete and versioning to recover the blob deletion from.
Great, thanks, Alec. And Bruno, as a follow-up to our previous question around RIs and on-demand capacity reservations, can you explain a little bit more on how on-demand capacity reservations work?
Yeah, so customers can go and they can instantiate on-demand capacity reservations either through portal or CLI or APIs. You kind of use the same construct as you would kind of go deploy a VM, which is what is the VM size, what is the region, if you are deploying to availability zone, and how many of those VMs do you need. And once you put that request in, if in that region or in that availability zone we have the capacity available, then we accept that reservation. And once you have that reservation, then you have the SLA for deploying your VMs against that reservation anytime you want.
Okay, great. Thanks, Varun. Alec, I know that a question came in around per disk backup. I know we have Azure VM Backup today, which backs up your VM and disk. Can you explain a little bit more on how per disk backup works and how it's different?
Yeah, so per disk backups is kind of what it sounds like versus VM backups. Per disk backups is where we actually back up the individual disk instead of backing up the entire virtual machine, which is the Azure VM Backup solution. So like say they're kind of using like two different scenarios. One, the Azure VM Backup is if you need like an entire VM backed up along with all its data disks. And it's basically to give you like the option to like restore that virtual machine at that particular moment. On the other hand, you might just need critical backups of just the OS disk or data disk. And that's when our new per disk backup feature comes in to save the day. And so you can actually use these products side by side using the per disk backup in additional to the Azure VM Backup solution. So like this is great because you can do like once a day backups across the entire VM to provide an application consistent backup of the virtual machine, as well as like the backups of the data disk and the OS disk all at the same time. But like say that data disk and OS disk is also critical as the day goes on, and you want to save on your storage footprint and save some money as a consequence. So you can go ahead and use our per disk backup to kind of reduce your storage footprint and save you money. But yeah, you can go ahead and use those solutions hand in hand. But yeah, thanks.
Great, thanks, Alec. And Varun, so another question that came in, so related to virtual machine scale sets, flexible orchestration mode. What are some of the use cases that you've seen associated with the Vmss Flexible Orchestration Mode?
Thanks, Henry. I think it's a great question. As I was talking about a little bit earlier, Vmss Flex provides two very important concepts. One is providing high availability at scale. And the second one is providing heterogeneity as part of Vmss, which didn't used to exist before. So we've seen customers through our early access I talked about Cassandra as an open source database that customers have run. Customers have run their e-commerce sites, which require very high availability and are mission critical or business critical for their platform. We've seen customers run Kafka on this as they want to scale and have queue management. You've also seen an interesting trend in the market, right, where there's a lot of services who run services as a stateless service, and they want to mix on-demand VMs and spot VMs together. Our current Vmss Flexible Uniform Orchestration Mode does not allow you to mix spot VMs and on-demand VMs together. But Vmss Flex does allow you to mix on-demand and spot VMs together in the same VMSS. So opportunistically, you can scale out using that. The preview that we just released does not come with auto scale yet, and I published a blog on Azure Tech Communities earlier today, which kind of talks about when these features are going to be available. But that's a great way for customers to save cost, and that's what we've seen customers use today.
That's great. Thanks, Varun. Alec, there was a question around another than the new announcements on the disk side. What does can you explain a little bit more what the new auto key rotation of customer managed keys allows? Can you explain a little bit more about that service and capability?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I really like this one. So with Azure Managed Disk, we provide like end-to-end encryption of data with our key stored in Azure Key Vault. And so now with like this new auto key rotation feature, you can pretty much rotate those keys automatically. So when you generate a new version of the key in the Key Vault, either you import that key or you build it with the Key Vault, this system automatically updates it for all the managed disks, all the snapshots and all the images, and it pushes it out to everything within that set within an hour. This is great because this takes away like the manual process of going and updating all your disks, all your operating system, all your virtual machines and all the images, or sorry, not virtual machines, snapshots and images, without, you don't have to do that manual work anymore, and it just does it automatically within an hour.
Great, thanks, Alec. Varun, next question for you. It's around automatic patch. Can you explain how automatic patching for Linux works?
Yeah, so there's a new preview that we announced today where you can automatically patch your Linux VMs in a availability first mode, and the VMs are, and the patches are classified as either a security or a critical, and they will be downloaded on the VMs and installed, and they would be patched in the off-peak hours as defined by the zone, and there's documentation that you can go look at on how they are applied on your VMs. And there's also another thing that we are that we're bringing in with this, which is availability first, right? So if you say have 100 VMs, we don't want to update all the 100 VMs at one point in time. We go by buckets or by batches or whatever you call it, so that you maintain availability for your VMs as the patches are installed. So it's a great way to keep your environment safe on Linux, and a similar feature also exists on Windows. And be rest assured that you're not prone to any security threats and whatnot, and your environment is always secure.
Thanks, Varun. Alec, next question for you, related to Azure Files. Can you talk a little bit about the SMB multi-channel preview announcement for Azure Files, and then what are some of the benefits of this announcement?
Yeah, sure. So the SMB multi-channel preview announcement. So what this allows is it allows our on Azure Files, our SMB clients to have multiple connections to the SMB file servers. And this is awesome because with multiple channels connecting to the server, you get higher throughput and increase in IOPS, and also network fault tolerance because you have multiple connections. So if one of those connections drops, you still have multiple going. And this is great for cost optimization because you can achieve high scale performance from a single VM by utilizing the full VM limits. And it covers, and right now it's available in a broad range of regions right now, but not quite Azure wide yet. But soon we hope to get it out everywhere.
Awesome. Thanks, Alec. And I know we're almost out of time. We've got about a minute left. So thanks again, Alec and Varun, for taking the time, and thanks everyone for posting their questions and attending this session. We can continue these sessions in the tech community. And I'll just quickly go over to some of the resources where you can continue to learn more. We have great learning content and skilling content at the link aka.ms/learn@ignite, and then we have additional resources where you can learn about all the latest and greatest with Azure infrastructure with the link there as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this session and have a great rest of your Ignite. Thank you.